We're here today at Warrawagine Station with Robin Mills, pastoralist. Robin, how far are we from Perth, just to give people a sense of how far away this is?
Approximately 1,600 kilometres from the cattle station yards here to the yards in Perth. Yeah.
Right. And your wife tells me it's a 6-hour round trip to get groceries. Is that right?
Yeah. She leaves here about 5:30 in the morning, and it's 3 hours into Port Hedland, and then she'll spend up to 8 hours shopping in their groceries and so forth, and to feed the staff, and then a 3-hour drive home. Usually gets home about 8:30 at night.
One of the problems you have here is with feral animals?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the problems that we sort of got involved in probably 10 or 12 years ago, was the camels coming in out of the desert. We've got about 160 kilometres of desert interface on the east side of the property where we join the Great Sandy Desert. And it becoming more and more obvious to me that the camels were just coming in as the dry season's out there, and they were chasing the water. We've got the Oakover and the Nullagine rivers flowing through us here, and it was a good source of water for them, and they were tending to come in and do some fair bit of damage on the way.
Mm. And what's that damage that they do? It's damage obviously to infrastructure, but to other things as well?
In our case, we're fairly fortunate the damage is not all that severe, because much of that part of our property is not fenced, but they do, where they have come through from the sand dunes in and taken sometimes up to 500 metres of fence, they'll just flatten it, fairly new fence. They are fairly severe on water supplies, on troughs and that sort of thing. They'll wreck those if they can't get enough water into them quick enough.
Mm. And again, I guess people don't really have a sense of the scale. So when you're talking about damage to fences, you're not just talking about a very small front fence. You're talking about expensive fencing and quite a bit of it.
Yes, it is. I mean, when you've got a property this size, it's something like 170 kilometres from one end to the other. The amount of fencing that you've got in it is a huge expense, and to replace it and getting staff at the moment is very, very difficult. So yeah, it is pretty expensive to maintain those and the waters. Yeah.
And have you seen an increase in camel numbers over the years? I mean, and if you have, how have they increased? Is it dramatically in the last couple of years? Has it been constant?
It's been reasonably constant in the early stages, and then about 4 years ago we started to see big numbers of mobs of 30 and so coming in, finding their way through the Isabella and Gregory Range. And that's when we became really, really concerned as to that. And we'd had reasonably good seasons here in that time, and probably less rain out in the desert to the east of us. And that's when you notice them. Once they're short of rain out there, that's when you notice the bigger numbers coming in. We've been a bit fortunate this year. We got rain in December last year, and then quite a bit of rain has fallen in the desert out there this year. So the numbers haven't been as severe this year.
And I guess one of the things that we hear from people around the country really is that commercialisation is one of the secrets to managing the feral camel population. Setting up abattoirs for meat and being able to use camel products. Do you see that happening up here, in the short term, long term? Do you think it's a possibility?
Short term, absolutely not. I mean, we worked with the committee out of the Northern Territory for something like 8 years, and we looked at every possibility of setting up abattoirs and so forth. We did a meeting last year with the Matu people from out in the desert area out to the east of us here, and we had a pastoralist who has been involved in trying to get camels commercially into markets and so forth, and he was able to give us a first-hand description of how basically heartbreaking it is trying to muster camels, how difficult it is to get them to load onto trucks, how almost impossible it is to transport them. And that's really brought it home to us, the total inability to make an industry out of the camels, and that's a huge disappointment, because it is an asset as such that's there. Although limited, there's not a great deal of meat on a camel. There's an awful lot of bone and gristle and one thing and another, and you can probably only get $300 or $400 worth of meat off a camel for the cost of rounding him up and transporting. You will not get a worthwhile return from him. The impact that they're having on native animals and so forth is massive. Once again, we had that meeting with the Matu people, and I have huge admiration for those people. They are great, and some of their beliefs, the belief that you don't kill something just for the sake of killing it, it's something that's of value, and you don't waste anything, and that's a huge asset for people to have that attitude. But when you see that there's no kangaroos, there's no emus left in that land out there, and when you see that, and you look at the area and the size of that amount of country that's out there, to realise that the camels have become such a dominant factor in that, that they're tasting those native animals away, and it must be affecting smaller animals as well. But also the bush tucker and their bush medicines and so forth, and the foliar that's out there, the damage that they're doing to that. We've talked to station owners down further towards Walloona, who's in a lot of mulga country, and the mulgas are great trees that have been there for thousands of years, and they're just breaking down huge areas of those and just breaking them up. And that's a condemnation on us, that if we don't do something about them. It's good if we can highlight the damage that it's doing, and it's not just to the pastoralist. The pastoralists are on the edge of it. It is the whole ecology of that out there that we've got to get people to understand, and that's why we've got to make such a fight to reduce the numbers.
Is there a solution to the feral camel problem? I mean, how can we resolve this dilemma?
I think the first thing we've got to do is start this culling program that the federal government have put something like $19 million forward, that they expect state governments to go dollar for dollar in. And that's going to be their first hurdle, is to get the support from state governments and so forth. I was fortunate enough to meet with the Western Australian Minister for Agriculture yesterday. And once you can explain to these people where the problems are and that we're going to need that support, I think that's going to be available. So anything that we can get state government as well as what we've got from federal government and other sources as well to get the culling done, because it isn't cheap. It is basically, it's so inaccessible that it is helicopter work and so forth, and we're going to need a fair bit of money into it over the years to come.